A long time ago, there existed such a thing as a Commodore Amiga, a system that would seem to many as being the future of the personal computer. Sadly, it was not to be. Although it was ahead of its time, surpassing many other systems in its power and its possibilities, it dwindled to nothing. But not before giving us some of the greatest games ever made of that time. And one of them was Worms. Worms exist primarily because of two reasons. One of them is Lemmings. That game about murdering blue idiots disguised as a puzzle game created by the people that go on to make the Grand Theft Auto series. The other reason is a young man at the time named Andy Davidson who had the curiosity of delving within the RAM of the system and discovering that he could basically pull out all of the assets of Lemmings. So he did, and he made his own version of it. One where you would not just go around luring lemmings to their doom, occasionally solving puzzles, but one in which you actually tried to kill them as an objective. And so was born Lemaltery, which was of course an artillery game. If you're not familiar with the concept, artillery games are based around usually a simplistic interpretation of ballistics, where you have to enter an angle and a power level when you shoot something and then hope that you hit your target. If you don't, you then just reset, you try it again with different settings and hope to win. Meanwhile, your enemy is doing the same thing. Artillery games have been around for many years before Lemmings or Worms or Lemartillery. That being said, they sort of lacked something. Charm. And being that this was the age of mascot games, where if your game did not have something cute, something fuzzy, something unique, something attractive, something to catch the eye in the game that you could use to market your product, odds are you would go on to enter obscurity. And by obscurity I mean everybody knows what System Shock is that played games on the PC and is obsessed by them, but at large, a lot more people know what Mario is what I'm saying. So the concept of having these cute, little, animated, pixelated, fluffy things murder each other was fun. So fun that Andy Davidson thought to himself, you know what? I could probably actually get people to buy this once I remove the lemmings from it, which he did, and replaced them with something equally adorable, earthworms. Well, alright, the idea of a mascot needing to be cute and fuzzy and charming maybe wasn't what he was going for. The original version of the worms, they looked, well, like worms. Even on the box, they looked not cute. They looked very serious, very wormy. They would go on to be more cutified as this series went on, but originally they weren't all that cute in their presentation. Though in the game, they're basically a line with some pixels on it, so it didn't really put people off. He called his game Total Wormage. He then took the game to the European Computer Trade Show in London. Oh man, remember that event? It got canned years and years ago. And there, he met up with the people at Team 17. Now, you may not know this by today's standards, but Team 17 actually made other games. He showed his idea to them, they liked it, they picked it up for further development, and in the year 1995 it was released to the public and became an instant sensation, selling, well, I'm not exactly sure how much the first one sold, but it sold enough. Enough so that Team 17, in essence, just made Worms for a while. Well, not just Worms, but there have been to this date, in the 23 years that have passed since the release of Worms, nearly 30 sequels, spin-offs, remakes, add-ons, expansions, extensions, and, well, you know, inevitably they were gonna make a karting game too, because when you run out of ideas, that's what you do, though they did cancel it before it was actually done. Now, was that a good call? I mean, Worms, when you think about it, especially in the version that we now see it as being, would have been well adapted to a karting style game. I mean, you already have the worms, the weapons. It's actually a lot better suited to having that as a game than Mortal Kombat did, though Mortal Kombat had it as an extra game inside a bigger game. Still would have been better than golf. And what was the reason for this success? Well, the reason is quite simple. In this game, you got to blow up things, you got to destroy the environment, you got to make hell on earth, basically, using creatures that were worms. Worms that would say things like, sorry, and perhaps. Worms with cute voices. Worms that would throw sheep at people. Worms that would throw cows at people, and old ladies, and holy hand grenades, and banana bombs. it was nuts. It was, even when it looked kinda, you know how it looked in the old days, you saw it in the first bits, even then, it still had a certain charm, and that was dialed all the way to 11 when they made things cute. When the worms didn't look like actual worms, they looked more like cartoon worms, you know, cute, funny, even more better suited to the voices they had. All the while, amping up the violence even further, because cartoon violence is funny, it's amusing. Oh, you just hit someone over the head with a concrete donkey and blew up half the stage. That's humor right there. Super sheep, super banana bombs, holy hand grenades, carpet bombs that are actual carpets. The variety of weapons in the games were ludicrous, and the tools you had at your disposal, you could ninja rope your way across a map like you were an actual ninja. Not in the first game, but in the ones that came with Worms 2 and after. Some would say that the peak of the series was reached with Worms Armageddon. I would say it was actually what Worms World Party, and that may be because, personally, that was the first Worms game I played. Though I was aware of the series before because Worms was the only video game for which I saw an ad on TV. Not Worms 2, but the original, where the worms were barely visible. I actually saw an ad for it on TV. That was not something you would see, even on Cartoon Network. Now, the reason I would say that Worms World Party was the best of them is by the way that they're made. Worms is a constant iterative process upon the previous game, until they switch engines, and then they go back to zero. Well, not exactly zero, but it takes a while to build up. It's still better than what The Sims does, and Worms World Party was building on top of Armageddon. Sure, if you played Armageddon, World Party didn't have really that much to offer for you. It was the same game, but now with mutators. So you could have different settings, like Super Ninja Rope, where you could basically aim it anywhere and it would go on forever, or really, really deadly gravity. That may not seem like much. Again, if you played Armageddon before it, there's really not much to it. But if you hadn't, if like me, you went to your cousin when he got a new PC, you put in that demo disc of Worms War Party, and you played that thing for 6 hours straight, non-stop, it became your favorite game. The series itself has evolved quite a lot since its humble beginnings. You didn't have challenges, you didn't have missions, you didn't have a lot of variety in what you actually did. You just enter a game, you'd fight against either the AI or against humans or a mixture of the two. But it became more and more complex, with more interesting simulations, more interesting weapons, side objectives, game modes, map editors. It went to 3D, it came back because people found it a bit fiddly in 3D. It got hats. Of course it got hats. It had a Facebook version, and to this day it is one of the few games with loot boxes that people are actually happy to see, even if it shows up right next to your enemy, because you can always blow it up. If you're interested in playing Worms, you can pretty much pick up any of the games in the series that are available everywhere, and I mean everywhere, on every platform. I'll be shocked if Team 17 doesn't try to pull their own XCOM style game like what Ubisoft did with Rabbids and Mario. They could probably do it with Lemmings, since Team 17 now also publishes Lemmings. That would be an interesting sight to see. And as always, remember the worms that have fallen in battle. Remember Boggy B. So fight with his honor and fight until the end. Goodbye.